Howdy, Immortalium here, and welcome to a Manga Tag video. Yes, I know, it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I've been tagged by Archangel Manga, who, if you guys don't know Archangel Manga, and honestly I don't know why you guys wouldn't have heard of him, since I mention him all the time on this channel. But anyway, if you guys haven't heard of him, I'll include a link to his channel in the description below. I may as well include a link to his Manga Tag video as well. And if you guys aren't aware what a Manga Tag video is, essentially what you do is you answer a bunch of questions that's part of this tag, and then you tag someone else. And it kind of just spreads out from there. I think they're okay. I do find that a lot of the questions, like for example the questions in this, is a bit repetitive. But you know what? Maybe my answers will be different to when I've answered them in the past. And also it provides a bit of variety on this channel, which, to be fair, I do have some worries about variety on this channel. It seems like this channel quite often is just a manga review channel. I try to do discussions and all that, but it's hard to take a topics, etc, etc. So without any further ado, let's begin this manga tag. So first off, the very first question is, what was the first volume of manga you ever owned? Well, that's an interesting one in that the very first manga I owned was actually 2 volumes. The 2 volumes I owned are Volume 1 of Naruto and Volume 1 of Soul Eater. I bought both of these in a Waterstones, and as with most manga fans, I started into anime, and 2 of my favourite animes at the time were Naruto and Soul Eater. So what I do, I just bought the first volume of the manga series of each of them. And you know what? It wasn't a bad first purchase. I have a slightly different policy these days in terms of if the manga is not that different to the anime, I tend to just go with one or the other. But you know what? It was a good little starting off point, particularly since I was already into the anime. I knew I'd like the manga. Anyway, the second question is, what is your favourite volume in your collection? Now that's actually a very tough one. I honestly don't know if I can actually narrow it down to a single volume, but I can try. So recently I actually just finished reading Gundam The Origin, the whole manga, and I intend to do a review of that soon, but suffice to say, one of my favourite volumes are these 3. For those of you who can't really see the numbers, it's volumes 5, 6 and 7, which basically incorporate the entire past arc. In this, it's pretty much the only original content in terms of arcs in the entire manga, excluding, you know, like bonus stories, etc, etc. But for full-on arcs, this is the only original part in all of Gundam The Origin that wasn't in the anime. But my god, this should have been in the anime, because it develops the characters so much, and it brings so much weight to all of the things that happen afterwards. It's just truly, truly incredible. I guess if I had to pick one of these, probably the mid one, Volume 6, because that's kind of where a lot of the meat of it is. Volume 5, you know, it's kind of getting into gear, and in Volume 7 it's kind of slowing down because it's going to be moving on to the next arc. So Volume 6, I'd say, is probably where it hit its peak. So one of my favourite volumes of manga, I'll have to say. Volume 6, Gundam The Origin. Highly, highly recommended. But I'll be doing a review of that soon enough, so I can give more details then. Number 3. Most expensive volume in your collection. Now that's an interesting little one. In the past it was High School of the Dead, the full color edition, because, you know, that was pretty expensive because the hardcover was in full color, etc, etc. But these days I think I may have a different candidate for that, actually. I think perhaps these days it's more like something like, I think it may actually be these volumes here, Ludwig B. Because I got these and many of the other Tezuka stuff recently through Kickstarter, and recently, like, the prices per volume have dropped a bit in terms of the Kickstarter, so they've been relatively cheap, whereas Ludwig B, which was the first Kickstarter I was ever a participant in, charged quite a bit for these 2 volumes. I mean, I think they were like $30 per. And that was before I included shipping, which brought it up to like $45 maybe. Now I paid in euro, of course, so it's less in euro, but even so, it was pretty expensive for just these 2 volumes. Even so, actually, I don't regret it, because first of all, I'm a huge Tezuka fan, I wouldn't have been able to get this otherwise unless I bought them digitally from eManga, which I don't really like to buy manga digitally, so I probably wouldn't have bought through that. And then I could have also gotten it through Akadot, but Akadot would have charged an arm and a leg for shipping, so I think I got the best value through Kickstarter, ironically. And not only that, Ludwig B is actually probably my favorite digital manga Tezuka title. That or Barbara. I'm not entirely sure. I think Ludwig B is a bit more consistent in quality, so I'll say Ludwig B. I really enjoyed the series. Not amongst Tezuka's best, but definitely I'm very proud to have owned it, and I do not regret spending that money on it. Because it helped lead into the other Tezuka Kickstarters, which have been better priced, and to be honest, better handled. So that's how that happened. After that, question number 4. Is there any manga in your collection you regret buying? Oh boy, now this is an interesting little one. Any manga in my collection that I regret buying? Well, to be honest, I'm generally pretty good with buying manga, but even so, I'm fairly sure that there is a couple of titles that I do regret buying. After considerable thought, I actually ended up deciding to go for Switch, the first 6 volumes, as the manga that I regret buying. Now, the reason for that is, I don't think this is the worst manga I own. I actually do think I have several other worst manga, but those worst manga I was going to buy anyway. And so I actually don't regret buying them simply because I know after reading them that I don't like them. However, with Switch, I was never really interested in picking up Switch. What happened was someone actually got me Volume 6 of Switch as a present. Now, why they chose Volume 6, I'm not entirely sure, but they bought it for me because they knew I was into manga, and who knows where they found this. So after that, I was thinking, well, I can't read Volume 6 until I get Volumes 1 to 5. So I ended up buying Volumes 1 to 5 for not a particularly great price. I think they were like slightly more expensive than they should have been. And once I started reading it, I realized that it was pretty bland and uninteresting. Or at least I found it bland and uninteresting. So because of that, because of the fact that I was never really intending to buy it anyway, I do think that I regret buying this more than any other. Even though it isn't the worst manga I own, all those other worst manga I was going to buy anyway. Anyway, after that, number 5. What manga in your collection are you most proud of? This is an easy one. And the manga that I'm most proud of is the fact that I have the whole series of With the Light, Racing an Autistic Child, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite manga of all time. I think this is a fantastic series, really beautiful, and I'm really proud to have it all in my collection, particularly because when I started buying it, I got up to Volume 4, and then Volumes 5 and 6 went out of print. And because of the fact that this is a Josei title, because not too many people talk about it, etc, etc, I wasn't sure if Volumes 5 or 6 were ever going to come back into print. But thank God, thank Buddha, thank whoever you want, that Volumes 5 and 6 came into print again, and you should have seen my face full of joy when I saw that they were finally back into print. You can't even imagine it. It was a fantastic moment for me. So I was really proud then to have been able to buy this whole series, because who knows how long it'll stay available, but I really do adore the series, so I'm very proud of this and the fact that I own this. Besides that, how do you organize your collection? Now this is going to be a little complex because I actually have several layers of my collection. So what I mean by that is the very first thing that I do is I organize them by publisher. So for example, the shelf that I'm looking at, the shelf that has the camera on it, the first, I'd say 2 1/4 shelves are all Dark Horse manga. Then the next, I'd say 2 shelves worth are Yen Press, and then I have some miscellaneous stuff there. If you look behind me, you know, I have Kodansha for the entire first shelf. Kodansha makes up the second, like the first half of the second shelf. Then I have some 7Cs there, etc, etc. So I organize them by publisher. Then after that, I organize them by demographic, I should say. So for example, for my Dark Horse, I start off with all the shonen, then I do seinen, I have some shoujo, and then I have the josei, which actually I don't actually have any josei titles from Dark Horse. I don't even know if they actually release any. If you guys know of any Josei titles from Dark Horse, I'd actually love you guys to mention them to me. But I'm not aware of any of them. Anyway, so I have them organized by shonen, seinen, and then shoujo. And then finally, the very last thing I do is within those I organize them by date of original release in Japan. So for example, the very first thing I have in my shonen, my Dark Horse shonen, is the original Astro Boy. And then following that I have Trigun, and then I have Angelic Lair, and that's actually all the shonen I have from Dark Horse. That's not very much. And then after that, I start off my seinen. I have the original Lone Wolf from Cobb, I have Samurai Executioner, then I go on to Black Magic, Dominion, Oh My Goddess, Seraphim, Opus, etc, etc. So I organize them by 3 layers. Publisher, then demographic, and then date of original release. Now, it is interesting to note that in regards to Viz Media, I actually do organize them a bit, like a little bit, by imprint. So for example, I have my Shonen Jump separated from my Shonen Jump Advanced. But that's just a case of there's so many of them that I just kind of want to organize them separately again. I still have them, like, obviously all the Viz stuff are together, and I organize them by date of release. And I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do about One Punch Man once I get that, because unlike all the other Shonen Jump stuff that I have now, or Shonen Jump Advanced, that's actually a seinen. So if I continue on with my own kind of collection scheme, then it's actually not gonna, it's not supposed to be with the other Shonen Jump Advance. So I don't know what I'm gonna do for that. I'm just gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna go with the actual demographic, or if I'm gonna go with the actual imprint. I'll just have to see. After that, let's see. What is one out-of-print manga that you wish you had in your collection? That's a very easy one. And people will notice if they follow me on ask.fm, if they follow me on Twitter, etc, etc. That is Blackjack Volume 6. I have the first 5 volumes of Blackjack from Osamu Tezuka. And a lot of it's out of print now, which is very unfortunate. Volume 6 is something that I really need. Like, I think Volume 7 is in print, but Volume 6 isn't. So I just really want to be able to get my hands on Volume 6, because then I can actually get Volume 7 and, you know, make some little progress. I'm hoping one day that Vertical might reprint it. If not, maybe eventually Vertical's contract on it might run out, and maybe some other publisher will pick it up and release it, maybe digital manga. I don't know. But I just hope that I can get my hands on Volume 6 of Blackjack one day. For a decent price. I mean, you can get it off of like eBay or Amazon, but you know, you'd be charged like £50 or something, which would be insane. So I'm not going to spend that much just to get Volume 6 of Blackjack. Now, if I win the lottery, maybe. Anyway, after that, one manga you wish was translated in your native language. Well, that's another interesting one. I actually took a look back through my ask.fm, because I was asked a question like that in the past. What was my top 10 manga that I wish were translated and or licensed, I should say. Actually, I've had some good fortune in that regards, because one of my titles, Rose of Versailles, is now licensed by, I believe it's Udon Entertainment. So I'm really happy about that. I'm going to be trying to get my hands on that at some point. I don't know when it's actually going to get released. That just reminded me, I need to look it up on like Amazon or Book Depository, see if they actually have a release date up. But yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on Rose of Versailles. But the one I ended up deciding is actually Urusei Yatsura. And my reasoning for that, first of all, I should say it's part of it has actually been translated into English. Viz Media licensed it, but I believe they only released about 9 volumes because it didn't sell well. So, you know, that's sad. And my reasoning for that, I've never read much, like I've never read any Urusei Yatsura. I've never seen any of the anime. I know Mamoru Oshii was the one who directed the anime, which is very interesting. That actually does make me want to see the anime. But my main reasoning for wanting to read it is because I really enjoy Ron Mahaf, and I like One Pound Gospel a lot, and I want to pick up more Rumiko Takahashi manga, and I'd really love to get my hands on the very first manga she wrote, which, like the very first ongoing series, Urusei Yatsura. But unfortunately I can't get my hands on it, and so I'm just going to have to kind of do her works out of order. Like I'm not sure exactly in her catalogue where Ranma Half comes in terms of release, but I mean with that and One Pound Gospel, that's where I've begun her catalogue. So I'm just gonna have to make progress on that. After that, question 9: omnibus or single volumes? Now, I've always been more of an omnibus person, but mainly because, you know, they tend to have higher quality paper, or they have extra bonus features, or they're simply cheaper to buy in comparison to the single volumes, particularly in comparison to like Dark Horse's releases. What I mean by that is the Dark Horse omnibuses tend to be a lot cheaper than the single releases in comparison to many of the other publishers, where with the omnibus releases you're getting a bit of a discount. With Dark Horse you're getting a major discount for the omnibuses. So I do prefer that. Now, there are some, like for example the Lone Wolf and Cubs, the Samurai Executioners, and to a lesser extent like the Gundam Origins. They're so weighty and so like thick, particularly like the Lone Wolf and Cub, mainly weighty for the Gundam Origins. They can be a bit uncomfortable on the hands, and so I do find myself getting a bit exhausted reading them. If I'm sitting down for like an hour or two, I do find my hands are kind of getting a bit tired after a time, because I tend to read like this. That is one drawback, and in that regard I prefer the singles, but in general I actually do prefer omnibuses, simply because better quality paper, more bonus features, and also the fact that they're much cheaper. So call me an omnibus fan. After that, question 10. What is one underrated / unknown manga you would recommend to others? Now, it's most assuredly not underrated on my channel, and I don't believe it's underrated in general, because the people that have read it or have experienced it tend to be extremely positive about it, and I believe it's won many awards. But in terms of unknown, like there is a lot of manga fans that honestly haven't heard of this series, or you know, like they don't know much about it, and it's again gonna be With the Light, Racing an Autistic Child. I would really recommend this. Admittedly, it does have a slightly over-the-top feel to it in terms of kind of melodrama, but I would, as someone who has autism, I will actually say that there is a lot of moments in my life where it does feel kind of melodramatic or over-the-top, even if it's about little things. So, I mean, I would highly recommend you pick up this volume at least and try it, and if you can get into it, I think you'll have an amazing, you know, eye-opening time with it. If you just can't get into it, that's perfectly fine, at least you tried it. But I would highly recommend you give this series a try, because I don't think enough people know about it, have heard about it, and really I think this is one of those manga which I can honestly say is like truly brilliant. So yeah, this is my choice for that question. Now the last question is a bit awkward for me. It's who do you tag? And that's problematic for me, simply because a lot of the people that I would like to tag have already been tagged. So the only person I can think of in particular is BDT87, you know, Ben. Besides that, I can't think of anyone else. I think everyone else I wanted to tag have already been tagged. You know, like, I'm gonna say, like, if you're watching this and you want to do this, you can consider yourself tagged by me. Particularly if maybe I'll think of in a moment someone else who is going, oh god, I should have tagged them. And if you watch this video, then you can consider yourself tagged anyway. So that's kind of just me covering my bases. So for the moment, BDT87. Besides that, I believe that's everything in my tag. So in regards to this tag video, I mean, a lot of these questions I've already answered, but maybe I answered them differently. And I've gained a lot more subscribers since I did one of these before, so maybe there'll be a lot of people who will be hearing me answer these questions for the very first time. So overall, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.